right, in this fresh new season of Korea Now, we have a brand new segment called North Korea Now. We have actually invited two very special guests on the program today. Interesting thing enough, I've known, of course, Casey Lartigue for quite a long time, and I learned something new here. I knew him since it was TNKR, but apparently now it's a new name, Freedom Speakers International. Sounds really good, to be honest with you. Well, we're going to be inviting not only Casey Lartigue Jr., first and foremost, welcome to the show, Casey.
All right, thanks so much for inviting me.
Also, we have Yuna Jung joining us in the studio as well. Thank you very much for joining with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I wanted to, Casey and I go kind of way back, and let me tell you how I first learned about Casey Lartigue Jr. I used to be a voice actor for a show called Four Angles here on Arirang News, and I had the opportunity to read this, and this is how I had this fascination for, at the time, TNKR. And so let me just read out how I did this portion of that show, and this is how it read. Amid inspirational developments in inter-Korean relations and increased hopes for reunification, more people are helping North Koreans in the South. Meet Casey Lartigue and Eun-gu of TNKR to learn more about their touching endeavors over the last 6 years. Now, 6 years, this was 2018, so it's not a lot more. But first and foremost, let's start off with Yuna. Yuna, can you briefly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, my name is Yuna, and I came to South Korea more than 10 years ago.
More than 10 years ago?
Yes.
You actually lived in South Korea, more than 10 years ago. It's just around the time that I lived in South Korea as well.
I see.
But I came from the States. Casey, I did a little bit of an introduction about yourself, but why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. I'm an American living and working here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm co-founder and co-president of Freedom Speakers International and co-author of the upcoming book, Green Light to Freedom.
Green Light to Freedom.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interesting stories I'm sure that you're going to be sharing with us on this. First and foremost, and I think, there's a lot of questions. I'm going to, I guess, send this question out for you. It's probably an understatement, but it's not easy escaping the North. Okay, that's a very, very huge understatement here.
Right.
Can you give us a little bit of, I guess, your story on how that came about and how you were able to come to the South in the first place?
Okay, I just defected from North Korea through third countries as others. So I crossed Tuman River and arrived in China, and then I moved to Myanmar, and then Laos, and lastly, finally I arrived in Thailand. So I stayed there 3 months until I get South Korean passport.
Right.
And I just came to South Korea. So I just crossed Tuman River 2nd of March, and I arrived in South Korea July 13 in same year. So it took almost like 6 months.
6 months. I mean, and it must have been a very dramatic, experience in your life, not to mention very scary at times as well. I mean, Casey, again, I know you meet a lot of number of North Korean refugees. I mean, tell us about your first experience meeting with Yuna, I guess, in the past when you first met.
Well, first of all, we've had about 470 North Korean refugees study in our program.
Wow.
And Yuna is definitely one of the stars. So she joined us in 2018. And she was the winner of our 11th English speech contest. And she also was one of the key speakers at a conference that we held at Harvard University a couple of years ago. But what I remember about our first meeting is her saying, why didn't anybody tell me about this?
Right.
Okay, so I didn't know about this kind of opportunity. And so she joined us at that time, and she's been active with us ever since then.
This is a question I've always had. Does Casey actually teach himself, or is he just like overwatching everything and taking all the credit for himself?
He acts like a boss. He never teach.
He never teach.
Well, but I do mentor the refugees in public speaking, so helping them get prepared for different events. Yes.
How I
haven't
didn't
worked
know
with
that.
you. Hey, I've worked with you on a couple of your speeches.
I don't remember
also.
exactly. So.
Can I just mention that you're English? How long have you been studying English, by the way?
Actually, I studied English when I was in North Korea.
Oh, really?
But it was totally different English, like very old-fashioned English.
Okay.
So North Korea considers English is English,
Right.
not American language, right?
Okay.
But you're studying British English.
Yes, but not really
Okay.
British. It's like old-fashioned. Nobody uses it anymore. So
Did you have like an example of what old English would be that you remember
I don't
studying?
even know how to explain to you, but whenever I was in South Korea, every time I spoke English, nobody understood me.
Okay.
So I always watched Netflix and YouTube and, fix my accent and pronunciation. So.
And so the number of years that you were studying, I guess, with Casey and I guess now his Freedom Speakers International, how long has it that?
Yeah, but I want to be clear. Before she joined us, her English was fantastic.
Yeah, because because I'm thinking, man, I mean, you guys have really good teachers. Because I'm sure our listeners will say the same thing because Yuna's English is spot on.
Yes, her English was
no,
so. Just be clear, her English was really great before she even joined us. It was more about opportunities to share her story and to talk about things in the news. So, we've had 470 people study with us. Not all of them were focused on English.
Okay.
So we have a core of people who just want to speak out, tell stories, write books, those kinds of things.
Right.
And what's interesting about this, and it was incredible when I heard the story about, Freedom Speakers International. You guys have like a wait list of teachers who want to volunteer to teach?
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. We're kind of busy. We have a lot of people contact us, and we're still a small scale. Only 4 staff members, so it's kind of hard to manage a lot of people out there.
That's right, because when I called, Freedom Speakers International at the time requesting an interview, and he said Casey Lartigue, and I said, what? why are you picking up the phone?
Oh, I remember that. You called and I said, wait, I wasn't expecting you to answer the phone. I said, brother, it's me. Go ahead and speak.
It was one of those things, right? Like you want to go interview a high-profile celebrity, and that's you call the agency, and then that celebrity picks up the phone call. That's exactly how things work.
But that shows how small we are of an organization. I answer the phone.
And you know what? You guys are doing a fantastic job. I'm glad Yuna and Casey, you guys are here together to talk about some of the issues here. Now, first and foremost, I mean, what we've seen numbers of, again, I don't have the exact figures, to be honest with you, with a lot of, I guess, North Korean refugees coming to South Korea. But unfortunately, the numbers of a number of North Korean refugees arriving in South Korea, they're getting fewer and fewer and fewer. I mean, what would be some of the reasons that we're seeing this right now?
Okay, well, first of all, just about the number so people know, about 34,000 North Koreans have escaped to South Korea over about the last 2 decades. But the numbers have been going down. They went up. I'll just mention one number. The year 2009, about 2,900 people made it just that year. But the number started going down after Kim Jong-un took power.
Okay.
And now, because of COVID, pretty much it's just non-existent now. So before COVID, more than 1,000 had escaped to South Korea in 2019. But last year, about 229, something like that. And the first 6 months of this year, only about 38.
Wow.
Escaped here. So think about it. In the year 2019, almost 100 people per month were arriving in South Korea. The first 6 months of this year, only 38. And I think Yuna has met all 38 of them, by the way, because of her activities. But the numbers have definitely gone down. As far as reasons, I think you have to look at 2 different sides. First of all, there's a North Korean side.
Okay.
They already had imposed more controls over the border. Shoot to kill orders, surveillance, CCTV, booby traps to catch and just injure people. The guards would get rewarded for catching people. Now, because of COVID, everything is times 1,000.
Okay.
So they're pretty much just closed the border. And then the Chinese side, the agents are more active than before, but also it's more difficult to even move around for them. So difficult to get into China, and then difficult to get around. So that's why we only have 38 the first 6 months. And the cost. Whereas I don't know how much it cost when Yuna escaped. And she has a story about, by the way, about stealing her father's money, which you can ask her about. But now, even when people can escape, it's more like $25,000, $30,000 or even more.
Right.
20...
And that's the number I heard a couple of months ago. I don't know what it is now.
And you're talking about that amount from North Korea.
Okay, so, I don't know if you want to...
Tell us about your story about you stealing money from your dad.
25,000, but I think when she escaped, it was a little cheaper.
Yeah, I only paid like less than $100.
Okay.
But now, as Case mentioned, $30,000 is still good amount of money. Even you're gonna pay like $60,000. The guards, they don't want to do it because it will take their lives.
Right.
So yeah.
Again, I had absolutely no idea that it requires that much money. And again, to tell me that again, because I mean, you're right. The guards are also risking their lives, and so they're not even willing to take this. But I want to go back to again, Yuna, to you when you arrived in South Korea. From what I understand, when North Korean refugees arrive in South Korea, they, I guess, go through some adjustment periods, and I believe Hanawon is that what it's called? Hanawon is where I guess you guys go. Tell us about your experience at Hanawon. What was it like when you first came here? And was there a huge culture shock? I'm sure there's a lot of things that North Korea tells you about how South Korea is, and I'm sure it's very different from what you heard there.
Right. And I came to South Korea directly. I didn't live in China.
Okay.
So I was totally like North Korean. So I didn't know about anything outside of North Korea. So when I arrived in South Korea, it was quite different planet, let's say. I took just time machine. So I just arrived like 100 years after where I came from. So everything was new and everything was shocked and culture shocked and whatever. So I stayed in Hanawon 3 months. They taught us about history and economic things and everything. How do you make a credit card and how do you use it and what is the points card? Something like that. So I didn't even know what was point card. So that's kind of things. But 2 weeks ago, I visited in Hanawon. I saw empty Hanawon.
Because there's less refugees coming in.
Right. I saw only 3 refugees in there.
Wow.
So that whole facility is empty.
So when you were there, about how many refugees
When
were
I was there, almost like 700.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now only 3 compared to 700. Yeah.
So they're like a king. The teachers told me like, oh, you should have come to this time because they're just like queen and kings.
I guess, with all this that's going on, it's unfortunate, right, in some ways that we are seeing less and less people. But here's an interesting figure here, and I learned this for the first time. There's actually way more female refugees compared to male refugees. Is there a reason behind this?
There's a whole list of reasons behind it. First of all, first thing to consider is that North Korean men are expected to serve in the military, required to serve in the military for about a decade.
Right.
So in the years that people are thinking about what they're going to do with their lives, they're marching around for the dictator. So ages, I guess, is about 17 to 27. So, and if you are not at a military, you should be somewhere at a company, factory, something for the regime. So first of all, men have fewer opportunities just because of what they're doing. Second, the markets in North Korea are mainly dominated by women.
Right.
So, in fact, some people say it's women's work in North Korea, the people who are actually working at the markets. So it's a lot easier for them to save money. They're not required to be in the military, so they can save up a little money to escape from North Korea. There are other reasons, and part of it is China. The male-female ratio is to the point that because of China's one-child policy for so many years, that there are many more men who are looking for women, and especially those who are quote-unquote undesirables, such as disabled, such as farmers and others. So they are looking for women, and they're looking to North Korea. And then just to be blunt and direct about it, for lots of people in North Korea, China is a step up. And that women are being recruited by people from China, North Korean people, and also Chinese people recruiting them to go to China, telling them about opportunities that they can have there. And then you just think about it. If you are a man and if there's a North Korean man and a North Korean woman who knocks on the door of someone in China, okay, if it's a man, it's a threat.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? If it's a woman, we can sell her. We can have her work at our home. So there are variety, and there's even another one I just heard actually from one of the former diplomats who said that typically the home is in the name of the eldest male of the family, the father of the. So if he leaves, the whole family's out. So those are some of the reasons why.
Can I ask you what you were doing before you decided to defect to South Korea? And also at the same time, what made you decide? What was, I guess, that turning point where you said, you know what, I'm willing to risk my life? And you know what, it might be very difficult to, I'm always very cautious when I'm asking these questions because, again, this is something that not many people can say they experienced as well in their lifetime. So can you tell us a little bit about your decision-making process there?
Yeah, I was a university student before I escaped. And the reason I escaped, it was because of K-pop and K-drama. I watched K-drama 가을 동화, and I saw Song Seung-won, and oh my God, he was so handsome. And I thought if I went to South Korea, I would marry that guy.
So you risked your life.
Right, because of K-drama, yes.
You know what? If that's the motivation for you,
yes,
it's everyone has different reasons for why. But seriously, I mean, but going back, from what I understand, there's a lot of K-drama that snuck in. There's, I guess, some underground market for K-dramas.
Yeah.
With USB. Is
right.
How you guys watch it?
Memory cards and USB and.
So, is there a huge craze for K-dramas? And can you also tell us about, I'm sure because a lot of our listeners are also, not Korean and they're very fascinated with K-drama. What were some of the popular dramas aside from 가을 동화 that really helped you change your decision, helped your decision to come to South Korea?
Right. So watching South Korean drama is illegal.
Yeah.
It's forbidden. It could kill you. But still, it's very toxic and you cannot stop if you start it. So I couldn't stop. That was my problem. So my family was very loyal and very obedient to the government because my father was military general.
Oh, wow.
So family was wealthy. I didn't have any problem with supplies but let's say K-drama has a lot of power.
And you also say K-pop as well. Who are some of the, I guess, popular K-pop groups over in the north?
Actually, it's funny. Not really idol groups.
Really?
Trot. You know, like a trot.
Like Park Hyun-bin?
Right. Yeah, like Park Hyun-bin.
Breaking news, Park Hyun-bin. Popular in North Korea.
Park Hyun-bin is more like idol. I liked Nahuna.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. This is, I'm hearing this for the first time because, I mean, we've heard this before, right? When there is, in previous administrations here in South Korea, what they used to do is they used to blast K-pop music with loudspeakers over in the board. And they used to play literally K-pop group songs. But what they should have done is play Park Hyun-bin, Dauna, and Seolundo would have been...
Right, Seolundo. I loved him when I was in North Korea.
This is quite interesting. So, Casey, I mean, you have this person who, number one, knew some English. Number two, had this fascination for K-drama and K-trot music. What was your first impression of Yuna? And I'm sure there is a long waiting list for North Korean refugees who are also trying to learn English. What was that process like, and what was that experience of meeting Yuna?
Well, of course, I knew she was special from the beginning.
Okay.
So it was a special meeting that very first time. Our process is we work with the refugees. We figure out what it is that they want to do. And so kind of our tagline is that we empower North Korean refugees to speak out. So if they want to get up and talk about their personal stories, if they want to analyze about North Korea, if they want to just talk about their hobbies, whatever it is, but we don't try to guide them in any particular direction, just partner with them in the direction that they want to go. So then we have 2 English speech contests per year.
Right.
And so it gives those who do want to speak out the opportunity to practice, but before, like a live audience, of course, before COVID, we had more people.
Right.
But to give them the opportunity to get on stage, and they can figure out if it's something that they want to do or not. If they don't, it's perfectly fine, because I don't want anybody on stage who doesn't want to be there.
Right.
Okay? So you have to want it. And so Yuna, of course, is one of the special people. So we just had our 14th English speech contest. And as one of the previous winners, she came back as a guest speaker. But she's involved in other things with us. So Yeah, so it's been a great relationship with her.
But you know what's interesting about all this? I mean, Freedom Speakers International, I mean, it's such a great organization. You guys, are doing this all for free, right?
Oh, well, thankfully not anymore.
Not anymore. You guys have really, you guys have really grown now.
Look, I got tired of that hero story about, working for free. I mean, that's only, so that was our first 4 years.
Yeah.
But even though I started getting paid, I gave 56% of my salary to the organization because we could not have survived.
Yeah.
So thankfully, but we only have 4 staff members. Very small.
I'm actually glad that you tell me that it's not free anymore because I was actually a little bit worried. I'm always going, how in the world is this group surviving for all these years? And I do understand. But again, I mean, we're looking at a long list of people who really want to join the Freedom Speakers International. But what is it about English Una that, so many North Korean refugees are, looking to learn the language? And is it because you guys believe that it really is going to help your life moving forward? What's the ultimate goal here after learning English?
Actually, someone who went to university in South Korea or someone who is in university right now, the difficulty is English.
Okay.
Not about math or not about chemistry, something like that. English is crazy.
Okay.
And I learned English when I was in North Korea, so I just knew a little bit of grammar, what I believed. But still, I, believe my English is still not enough to speak. So a lot of North Korean students, someone who actually tried to go to university or study university right now, it's really hard to follow them, like South Korean students, because they spend a lot of time and spend a lot of money. So they studied English. I don't know which age they actually start.
I mean, as young as, kindergarten.
Right. So compared to South Koreans, it's still lack of skills.
But what I just don't understand is your Korean is better than most South Koreans who went to English daycare centers and they went to all those cram schools and so forth. So obviously, I mean, your motivation was there. But Casey, I mean, you've met hundreds and hundreds of different students out there. What's, I guess, the main reason for why they want to learn English?
Okay, well, when refugees join our program, we ask them this question: why are they joining us? And so I'm going to talk about our previous history as well as what we're doing currently. And we hope to bring back our tutoring program one day, by the way, but because of COVID, it just wasn't really a viable thing for us to do. But first of all, about 60% of the refugees who joined us were students, college and graduate students who needed English. About 28% of North Korean refugees drop out of college compared to about 4% of South Koreans.
Right.
So the first thing is students. Second, they're employees. They're working at companies. They need help with English. And so faxes, emails, meetings, all kinds of things are in English. Third are the ones who are kind of like the role models. They might have escaped here a while ago, but the English, they might be like musicians or dancers or artists, doctors and other things, but the English levels have gone up, so a lot of them struggle because of that. Then the fourth reason is just kind of like self-improvement. Like mothers who have children, they want to learn English because their children are learning it. And, children are not exactly diplomatic. Mom, why don't you understand this? And then the fifth group are the ones that we really focus on these days, those who want to tell their stories and want to speak out. So a wide variety.
It really is, and I'm sure, I mean, everyone has their own reasons here. I want to ask this. This is an interesting question because in our program for like the past 2 weeks or so, I mean, there hasn't been enough of Squid Game talk. I'm not surprised we're going to talk about Squid Game once again because there was actually a North Korean refugee, one of the characters in Squid Game as well. I mean, when you saw this character, I mean, we were talking about a character that was willing to join this game, risking her life because she wanted money to rescue her family from North Korea. What was your thoughts on this character and that kind of storyline?
Actually, I didn't expect that because actually that has North Korean refugee character in the movie. It was quite surprised me too. And if I were her, I would like to join that group too because bring your family from North Korea, spend a lot of money. And she looks very desperate in that movie. So perhaps maybe she destroyed her family because of her escaping. So I don't know why she joined that group, but it was quite understandable because happiness without family is not really true happiness, right? So I think she risked her life there to bring her family to South Korea.
I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about this. And, it's been a very fun interview. I'm sure, I wish we had more time, to be honest with you.
But I want to make a prediction.
More. Yeah.
Just like Yuna escaped, she learned about the outside world and K-pop and K-dramas.
Yeah.
We're going to see the Squid Games escapee one day. Because it's going to be, hey, I learned that I can make a lot of money because North Koreans already try to escape just to eat.
Or I saw Lee Jung-jin, how handsome he was. And I decided I'm going to escape. But nonetheless, Casey, Yuna, thank you very much for joining us. And again, it's not going to be the last time that we're going to be having you guys in the studio here. But nonetheless, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys in the future.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.